Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Final Down NFL podcast with me, Jim, Finn, Punk Raider, and Denver Dave. We're top NFL boys. How we doing?
Depressed.
Oh,
You've dragged me on here to talk about a divisional loss, so let's get it over and done with, shall we?
we'll get to that soon
Dragged you on
enough.
anywhere.
Yes,
This is what it's supposed to be without fail each week. The fact that you take months off at a time is neither here nor
Well, exactly.
I
And it's just
sympathise with Finn.
convenient that every time I'm off, we win. So maybe this is my last
No.
episode.
It doesn't work like that,
No.
Phil. I promise you.
Well, we'll find out. I'll have to take another week off.
in the amount of times I've quit this podcast and ended up back on it the next season is untrue.
Almost
Every
many times you
week.
quit the Raiders. Yeah. We're going to go through all 14 games that happened. But of course, there has been a little bit of news going on with some trades in the NFL. So we better hit those first, boys. We're going to start obviously with the biggest one, and that was that Davante Adams has left the Las Vegas Raiders. Raiders receive a 2025 conditional third-round pick from the New York Football Jets. That pick could improve to a second-round selection as long as Adams is either a first or a second-team All-Pro this season, or is on the Jets' active roster for the AFC Championship game or Super Bowl. Now,
Sounds reasonable to me.
does that mean that the Jets have to make the championship game, or just he's still on the roster come the
Mhm.
championship game? Because there's no chance the Jets make the championship game. In my humble opinion.
Twofold. It's twofold, isn't it? It's basically going to turn into a second because he's going to be a first or second team All Pro because he is every single year regardless because he's Davante Adams. And then secondly, if the Jets somehow manage to fluke their way into an AFC Championship game, then that will also bump us up to a second. So it's fine. It's over. It's done with. His hamstring's miraculously better. So, shock horror.
Convenient.
It's done. Move on.
Okay. I'm happy to move on from that as well, Punk. But as long as you're okay with it, then we're okay.
I feel like there should have been more.
I feel like this should have been done pre-season.
I feel like it should have been a second rounder turn into a first rounder if it's an All Pro because
Ooh.
And
he
it
is.
probably would have been,
he
but
is
we
very
waited
good.
so long to actually
Yeah.
pull the trigger and say yes. I suppose the other thing to point out is that they are taking on all of his money. So
Yes.
everything for this year and everything for the next 2 years, those ridiculous 35 million a season years. They're taking all of that as well. So that's
he
good.
could just restructure though, right? They can
Yeah,
say they're doing it,
absolutely he could. Whether he will, who knows?
But if I'm the Raiders, though, I'm probably tempted to ship him for more draft picks and keep that money because all it means for the Raiders is that next season you're going to have 100 million in cap space rather than 70 million in cap space. I mean, you've already got massive amounts of space. So
Yeah, it just depends on who's on the free agent list, I suppose. I guess
next season for you guys, free agency is going to be one of the most exciting times of your history because you've got the space to sign everyone.
Exactly. So, it's I don't know. It's could you do more with draft picks? Maybe, with the free agency cap space, you can in theory pick up known quantities. So, we'll see what happens, but I don't think it's a terrible situation. I just think it should have been done earlier, to be honest. And I think if we'd done it pre-season, we probably would have got the second for him straight away, without too much negotiation. But it is what it is. Onwards and upwards.
Yeah, 2025 cap hit is currently cap space is 108 million, and you can save another 14 million if you get rid of Gardner Minshew, which you're obviously going to do.
Which is probably not beyond the realms of possibility.
Yeah.
If only you use your draft picks for good. And the other
It's always
one,
a dig, isn't it? He can't just be nice, can he?
Can't just let it go.
Can't just let it go, can he? He's always got to get the last word in.
Just saying. More AFC East moves. The Bills receive Amari Cooper from the Browns and a 2025 sixth round draft pick for a 2025 third round pick and a seventh round selection in 2026. So, Amari's pulled the escape hatch.
I don't know how good Amari Cooper is at the moment.
Well, he's the best player for the Browns on offense.
Well, we see wide receivers drop off from their height pretty sharpish. We saw it with Hopkins. We saw it with Julio Jones. 1 minute you're there, the next minute you're gone. And although he hasn't done it in Cleveland, it's fashionable to say it's Deshaun Watson. How much of it is him? And I'm not talking about dropping huge amounts. I'm just talking dropping from the top of the mountain to sort of final base camp before descent.
Mm.
It's interesting to see, but he's on a team where he can flourish now, and we will soon find out.
Well, the one thing it does is it gives Allen someone to throw at
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
because they have struggled in that receiving room.
Cooper was kicking off the other week that he wasn't getting the ball enough, and you know that they needed to get him involved earlier in the game, and so on and so forth. And I think there have been problems there for a while, haven't there? So it's really a case of Cooper's managed to get himself to a team that you would call a contender. Josh Allen will be happy because he's got another weapon. The Browns will be happy because they've got rid of the diva receiver, and they can start planning for next season because they're not going to do anything this year. So I think everyone's probably pretty happy with
I
that
think the
all
only
round.
reason I'm saying that he got 1,250 yards. I'm looking at his stats now. 1,250 yards last season, which is plenty. But this season so far, started off with 16 yards, then finished with 11 yards. Then he had a good game. He's only been above 50 yards twice this season, so it's probably just this season, and it probably is more to do with Deshaun Watson and that anorexia defense in Cleveland. So, yeah, maybe I retract my last statement, but it'd be interesting to see how good he is, and
We'll
whether he's
find
dropping
out.
out.
Yeah. There we go. So those are the two big moves that we've had so far in free agency before the deadline. So we're going to move on and do the review then for week 6. We always start with the first game of the weekend. That was the Thursday night game and the 49ers at the Seahawks. What a terrible first half of the Seahawks. Gino got picked on the opening drive. Laviska Shenault fumbled a kickoff, and they settled for a field goal as the first half expired to be down 16-3. There was a response in the third quarter as Shenault atoned for his earlier flub with a 97-yard kickoff return touchdown. Kenneth Walker got a score on the ground, but Seattle only managed 52 rushing yards in this game as Purdy got 3 touchdown passes, 2 for Kittle and 1 for Debo. Gino got picked again before a late touchdown pass to Tyler Lockett, but a Kyle Juszczyk touchdown salted the division win for San Fran. The final score was the 49ers 36, Seahawks 24.
Let's go to the Sunday slate.
Let's stay here for a while.
Suppose we have to stay, don't we?
What did I miss?
What did you miss? Well, I think Seattle missed a lot as well. It seems that game. Standout for me was both lines were getting absolutely dominated every single scrimmage. I mean, we've seen over the past few weeks the gaps appear in the defensive line, and 49ers just exploited it and were able to run through a lot of times like a hot knife through butter, which is quite concerning. Offensively as well, there's just nothing. Gino's forced into throws when he doesn't necessarily is set. Also, they're not able to sort of protect and create gaps for our run game. So as much as I can criticize the lack of run game, it's also down to the O-line. And it goes to a clip you sent me earlier today, Jim, of our very own offensive tackle, Stone Forsyth, who is fucking useless. There was one clip that I saw where he doesn't realize the ball has been snapped. The first time he moves is when the 49ers, I can't remember who it was, is genuinely past his heel. And then he looks up and actually starts doing something. So I don't know how he's sort of missed that. And they just, that right side of the offensive line, they just walk through and get to Gino very easily, which is frustrating because we've got, if you take the line out in terms of offensive weapons in the run game and receiving room, we've got so much there and so much potential, which just we're not giving Gino the time he needs to be able to throw. And he's still making a lot of throws at the moment and still making things happen, but there'd be a lot more output from him and efficiency if we could protect him more. And also, we could take a load off his shoulders by actually allowing Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet into the game a bit more.
I mean, you drafted 3 offensive linemen, but I think Stone is not supposed to be a starter, to be honest.
No, but he is.
He's forced to be a starter because of the injuries. But yeah, it's pretty appalling. He's given up more than double pressures to every other
more than
offensive
double
tackle in the league.
pressures.
I think
It's kind of
So
incredible.
I looked at this from a slightly different angle. The one thing I'm used to seeing from the Seahawks this season is no missed tackles at all. But in this game, they were just bouncing off 49ers players. And the amount of times there was chunk yards off missed tackles. And it's not even we're necessarily the bouncing off. It's also where there's just, you got one of your defenders got sold on a movement. It's not necessarily great play. It's like you're better than that. And then there was key penalties. I think you almost got double-digit penalties, and it was just in key times, and nothing really flowed, and you never got in your never got in your mojo. And I talked a
yeah,
lot about momentum, and it just doesn't feel like you ever had any momentum in this game. I think you asked Gino to throw it too many times. You could have ran the ball a lot. I think the 49ers are there to be ran at a little bit. They haven't got the strength they'd normally got in the center.
mm.
But yeah, I think it's an opportunity missed.
I mean, like
But
you said, it was going back to momentum. Is we did nothing in that first half. We just couldn't get anything going, and then by that point,
Yeah,
you're out of the
it's
game.
difficult to come back by them.
You look like a team coming off a short week. That's what it was.
Mm.
You looked underprepared for playing the 49ers. And any time that you're only running 52 yards and you're asking Gino to throw it over 50 times, that's not winning football for the Seahawks.
Mm.
So
Hang on.
yeah,
So the number of rushing yards was almost eclipsed by the number of passing attempts.
it was
yeah,
exactly the
Yes.
same.
You
So,
just
they were
accidentally
52
stumbled
yards
across the most
rushing and
amazing stat of the
52
week.
attempts. So, it's ridiculous, to
It's
be
all about
honest.
setting records, chaps.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Oh, Finn's
But
so sad.
surprised. Surprised. It's a divisional loss as well. So we're going to move on to Sunday,
Thank
and
you.
we get to pick our games now. So I'm going to start with the Commanders at the Ravens. This game wasn't flexed to Sunday night by the networks. I flexed it up to the top of our Sunday reviews as this was the game we thought it would be. The Commanders have to be taken seriously now, despite not quite doing enough this time to get the win. To beat the Ravens, you have to punish them for mistakes. When rookie Mike Samuels still picked Lamar on the opening drive, the Commanders can only settle for a field goal. In the end, 3 punts was too much for Washington as their run game was buttoned up, while Zay Flowers had a career day for the Ravens. 9 catches on 9 targets for 132 yards. All he was missing was the touchdowns. Final score was the Commanders 23, Ravens 30.
This felt like a playoff game.
Hmm.
Started off a bit cagey. Both teams respect each other. Nothing flashy. You just want to get through the game, and then at the end there's fireworks. That's kind of what this felt like as I was watching it. But I think the better team came through. A one-score game felt fair. You just want a little bit more of a run game from Washington. But no, good teams. Two good
Brian
teams.
Robinson was out injured, though.
I think it went, like you said, it went exactly as we thought it would. The Commanders' rush defense isn't quite there, and going up against a formidable running back in Henry was always going to be a tall order. And obviously, you never want to lose a game, but I think it's a testament to Washington, the fact that it was only a one-score game. And they can take a lot out of that by going, actually, we went up against a very good side and kept in it for the whole game. This game a few seasons ago would have been probably
A
3, 4 scores
massacre.
difference, but this is so it's a real testament to them, and they'll be able to sit there and go, look, we can see real progress. Yes, it's a loss, but there is real progress here, and there's a lot to take forward.
Mm-hmm.
If the game would have been 1 minute longer, I think they really could have. The thing is, they kicked a field goal. I think there was an onside kick afterwards when an attempt to try and retrieve, or maybe they tried to put. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I remember they basically just ran out of time, and rather than forcing Baltimore to actually go and win the game with a play, Baltimore just kind of saw the game out. With the momentum of the game the way it was, I'm talking a lot about momentum at the moment, but as with the momentum of the game the way it was, I think there would have been a real opportunity there, and that's going to change the more that Washington go on. They would put the foot down and accelerate a little bit early and really try to press home the advantages that they did have a little earlier in the game.
I think the interesting thing for me was that Lamar actually ended up throwing for over 300 yards. It wasn't, yes, Zay had a great day and, got his 120 or whatever it was. But I think generally Lamar looked a lot more comfortable throwing the ball. Now, whether that was down to Washington's defense playing quite soft, I'm not sure. But
I think they had to take a man out of the backfield to cover Derrick Henry, which made
Hmm.
it just a bit easier.
Yeah, maybe that created a few more holes. But if you'd said to me going into this season that the Ravens would get virtually 500 yards of offense against the Commanders and it would only be a one-score game, I think I'd have laughed at you. So I think it's testament to the way Washington are putting their team together. And if they carry on like this, they're going to be a real force kind of next season and this, for the next few years. So yeah, good game, excellent game.
Other little bit of bad news for the Commanders was that Jonathan Allen, I think, is done for the season with a pec injury. So that's some meat out of the defensive line, unfortunately. We're going to move on to another good game, and that was the Chargers at the Broncos. Those Chargers almost charged on Sunday in Denver. Despite getting out to a 23-0 lead in the fourth quarter, the Broncos were allowed a chance to come back. They get a touchdown to Troy Franklin, then they get gifted the touchdown to Cortland Sutton despite the replays, setting up an onside kick attempt they should have been nowhere near. Chargers hold on after looking comfortable for the majority, holding over Holding over 37 to 60 game minutes. Final score was the Chargers 23, Broncos 16.
What? What do you mean nowhere near? That was a
You should have
touchdown.
been nowhere near it. That
You're
wasn't a touchdown, mate. It moved
It
under
was.
it. The ground helped him collect
You're
that ball.
out of your mind. Anyway, no, I think we were very unlucky in this game. We didn't play well
Okay,
in the
yeah.
first half, especially. I have to mention, you're going to think this is an excuse, but it's not. I have to mention the Pat Surtain injury. It started really badly in this game. And again, it's momentum. I'm saying it for the third time. I'm going to shut up about it soon. But first couple of plays, there's a tapped interception. I don't really put that. I mean, it could have been better placed, but when you get a tipped interception, it's not really on the quarterback. They then go down and score a touchdown. No, it was a field goal actually. And then, but sort of first or second play on defense, we lose Pat Surtain. And he is the cornerstone, literally, of our defense. He's part of the Bermuda Triangle, and when you lose him, it throws all of the Equinox out of the defense, and we couldn't stop the run. It just took us a long time to actually adapt to it. And by then the game's over. Half time the game's done. The fact that we then took the shackles off Bo Nix a little bit and said, okay, let's go and play some aggressive offense. It was enjoyable to watch, but it was painful to watch at the same time. But yeah, it could have been a lot worse.
Said you were lucky.
Let's put it that way.
Chargers were always in control of this. They just took their foot off too much in the fourth quarter and let the Broncos back in.
I don't think they did because they were still playing tight and they were still playing aggressive, and we still managed to score a couple.
Again, the ref's giving you a touchdown as well.
I don't think it wasn't, Jim. Don't be daft.
Their
I don't.
play calling definitely went conservative in the fourth quarter.
I agree.
Which is why you ended up getting the possessions that you did. I do agree with you. I think the Cortland Sutton catch is a catch. I think it's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I don't care if the ball moves very slightly when he lands on the ground. You know,
He never loses possession of the ball. Did the ground help him?
You know, a little
His
bit
arm was still under there.
It's
So
not enough in my eyes to negate what was a great catch. There have been far too many times when the NFL have changed the catch rules to mess about with it and try and exactly define what a catch is and isn't, and they still haven't got it right. But yeah, to me, that was a perfectly good catch. But yeah, I think the Broncos are a young team bedding in. The Chargers are a little bit further down the path.
I was talking to a Broncos fan. The way he described it is way better, and I'm going to butcher what he said. But there was a lot of good and bad, more bad than good. But at least we had some good along that line.
There are positives to take from it.
Yeah.
Ben, anything you want to say on this game?
No, I think the boys have summed it up perfectly. I think the score line is sort of, it makes it look closer than it was, in that the Chargers did sort of let their foot off the gas a bit towards the end, but also the Broncos did have glimpses throughout the game, and so if you're watching the game and didn't have that scoreboard, then you'd probably think it would be a close game. So it's a sort of a weird one in that sense. But I think on the night the better team won.
Yeah, I agree with that entirely.
Next game then, let's do the Steelers at the Raiders. An early lead for the Raiders failed to be sustained as the Steelers refused to go away and grew into the game as mistakes started to show up for Las Vegas. There was a blocked punt by the Steelers special teams, a TJ Watt punch out when the Raiders were at the goal line, as well as a forced fumble earlier in the game. A pick of Aiden O'Connell by Dante Jackson that gave Justin Fields a rushing touchdown one play later. Fields had 2 rushing touchdowns in this game, Najee Harris with the other, as the Steelers were actually comfortable for a change with time left in the fourth. The final score was the Steelers 32, Raiders 13.
Over
Go
to
on
you,
then.
chaps.
Yep, go on then.
I'm going to get some popcorn.
Well, I'm very happy with the game. Lovely to see so many Steelers fans, as usual, in attendance away. And again, like I said, it's very, very strange for me to be watching a fourth quarter and not have any nails left. So, yes, thank you very much, Punk, for making that a more enjoyable experience.
You want me to go on a rant and a rave about the Raiders, but it's not going to happen. So,
Oh, go on.
For my comments on this game, please refer to last week's podcast where I did go on a 7-minute rant.
that last
and
week?
just cut and paste it into this one, and you're pretty much looking at exactly the same thing. The only thing I would say is, it's fairly obvious that Aidan O'Connell is not the answer.
Oh no.
If we're going to really just keep chopping and changing between Minshew and O'Connell for this season, then fine. But we need to stop shooting ourselves in the foot. Fumbles are inexcusable. I would have any player that fumbles the ball walking around the facility for the next 7 days, holding it high and tight and telling everyone to try and punch it out their hands. It's ridiculous. The amount of self-inflicted wounds that this Raiders team is putting on themselves week in and week out, it's just ridiculous, to be honest. Devontae's gone, so it's we can move on now from that bit of drama. Immediately, all the drama started happening around Max Crosby. And Aiden Hutchinson's injured. He should go to the Lions. Like, he's not going to the Lions. It's not happening.
Third round conditional pick, he might.
Yeah, okay then.
What's your feeling with Antonio Pierce
anymore?
What's your feeling with Antonio Pierce? Is it still give him a chance?
I'm still jury out because the offensive play calling has been so dire, and the offense has been absolutely dreadful.
He's a defensive guy, though, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's a defensive guy.
Who's in charge of the offense?
Luke Getsy. After a great stint at the Bears, we had his trade there.
It was a bit of a weird one because we had Cliff Kingsbury in the building, and it looked like he was going to be our OC, and then 2 days later it wasn't. So, and we ended up with Getsy. I don't quite know what happened there, but it was all very strange. And yeah, he's just crap at play calling.
Who knew?
But you kind of go, well, he was at the Bears. He didn't necessarily have the weapons on offense to really make a difference. So let's see what he does with Devontae Adams and Brock Bowers and so on and so forth. And it's just not worked. I mean, I suppose the problem with Antonio Pierce is he's a brand new head coach, so you want to know how much influence he's having on the coordinators, or are the coordinators influencing him? I would like to think that Pierce would turn around to Getsy and say, "You've got to sort this out," because when they do open it up and they do, create things, they look quite good on offense, but it's just it's always too late. There's always something that shoots us in the foot, and then we kind of disappear into our we'll start a game well and then disappear into run it up the middle on first and second down and then try and convert a 3rd and 7 every drive, and it's just you can't win games that way. So I don't know, I'm kind of in a holding pattern. We'll see what happens. I don't hold much hope for the next 3 games. Let's get to the bye week and see where we are.
That's enough about your head coach. How about your new minority owner?
Oh, he's amazing. He's the greatest quarterback to have ever lived. I've always said I rated him and respected him. So, even he, yeah. Well, it is what it is, isn't it? If Tom Brady can come in and start advising on players to pick up and be part of that interviewing process and just generally help on the football side of things, then it's surely a good thing. But again, former players do not always necessarily make good owners, so we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Just want to say our majority owner, minority owner, has got more world championships than yours, Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
I thank you very much. The only thing I wanted to say is my favorite, going back to Lugetzi, my favorite quote on him was from Mark Schlereth. And he said, some guys call plays, some guys call an offense. He is incapable of calling plays. And that kind of says everything. So he doesn't just actually call it an entire offense. He's incapable of calling the right play at the right time.
Yeah, and we're seeing that. That's definitely part of what's going on. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
Oh, that's worse.
Oh.
The next section I've created is entitled "No Surprises," and there's quite a few in here. So we're going to start with the Lions at the Cowboys. And happy birthday, Jerry Jones. The Cowboys owner / GM was celebrating his 182nd birthday as the Detroit Lions came into Jerry World and put on a show. Someone better check on Jerry's blood pressure after this one, as the Lions were taking the mick, dropping bomb touchdowns to Jameson Williams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Sam Laporta. David Montgomery got 2 on the ground as the Lions started trying to force touchdown passes to offensive linemen. That got picked twice, and the Cowboys had 5 turnovers in total. The only down point for the Detroit was the elite pass rusher, Aiden Hutchinson, breaking his tibia and fibula. Horrific, and hoping he can get a full recovery on that one. The final score was the Lions 47, Cowboys 9.
Do you remember a couple of weeks ago I said the Cowboys are rubbish if you beat them up?
Yep.
The one team that's better at beating up their opponents is Detroit. No one's better at it in the NFL because they just dominate the Lions both sides of the ball. And this looked for me exactly like that. The Cowboys look like boys playing against men. It looked like, when you watch a college team and it's SEC versus, Mountain West, and they're just men versus boys. That's kind of what it felt like. I feel like the Cowboys were out of it from the first minute onwards and weren't even close to getting back in. It was an utter domination.
I think the thing as well is the Cowboys, they're missing key pieces on the defense, so they knew that it was going to be a tough game on that side of things, particularly against the Lions offense that was absolutely firing on all cylinders in this game. But if you know that you're playing with one hand behind your back, as it were, in one area, then you're going to need everyone else to step up. And Dak Prescott didn't exactly do that. So it's not that they had much hope and could even try and make it a battle, because he just couldn't get going, nor could the run game. So they were just, and by that point, the Lions had started toying with them, and game, set, match.
I said there's some positives for the Broncos. I can't think of too many positives for the Cowboys in this game. I can't think of much they come out.
Maybe the birthday cake afterwards.
The return game's all right.
The punt returns.
Yeah.
Well, the kickoffs after Detroit kept on scoring.
Kickoff returns and punt returns are fine.
I think
Apart from that, the Cowboys are exactly who we've said they are.
They suck.
They're dreadful. They are absolutely dreadful.
It's just
their
soft.
roster is as shallow as a pygmy's paddling pool. And the problem is, right, you can't make your quarterback like the most expensive quarterback. You can't make the highest paid receiver. You can't have the highest paid pass rusher. And then expect the rest. And then you've got a cornerback like Trevon Diggs going to be paying. And you can't expect the rest of the roster to then fill out the right way.
And they've got Lawrence as well in the middle, who's earning an absolute fortune as well.
Yeah.
And probably got one of the highest paid guards in Zach Martin. So
yeah. And you go into a season with Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle as your 2 running backs. What do you expect? Your only free agency in the offseason was Eric Kendricks, and that was an accident because Mike Zimmer turned up and he went, "Oh, can I get someone old from the Vikings to come across?" And he got Eric Kendricks.
Dak's 3rd in passing yards, though. Just saying.
Yeah, but there's a lot of interceptions as well. He's not well loved, I don't think. Especially CD doesn't seem to be enjoying playing with him. No. But yeah, it's they are who we thought they were. So no surprises, hence the title of the segment. On to the next no surprise, and that was the Buccaneers at the Saints. A 50-burger. The Bucs got out quick with a touchdown pass to Chris Godwin and the hit on Chris Olave that coughed the ball to Antoine Winfield to scoop and score. Tampa then imploded in the second quarter as a punt got returned for a touchdown by Raheed Shaheed. Then Baker got picked 3 times before the half as Spencer Rattler took his team in with a 3-point lead. The second half, the Bucks defense stepped up, forcing punts and a couple of picks as the game wore on. The Tampa offense also turned the screw with 4 touchdowns to ease away, and the final score of the Buccaneers 51, Saints 27.
I think despite the score, Spanky did well on his debut.
I think he
he
did.
did okay.
I think so.
It was a tough circumstance.
Encouraging.
It's going to be clouded
performance.
by the score, unfortunately, but I agree.
If he does well in the next couple of weeks, you've then got a decision to make. And let's not pull any bones. Dennis Allen, he's fighting for his job at the moment. And do you put your faith in a rookie?
Mm.
So I fully expect to see Derek Carr coming back in.
Yeah, possibly. Depends on the wins and losses.
I'm still not sure how the Saints managed to score 27 points in the second quarter. I'm really
So
Chaos
there
is
was
how-
a special teams thing there. You know, it's a
Oh,
punt
yeah,
return.
that accounts for 7 points, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was like the Tampa Bay defense just melted away for a quarter. It was very strange, very, very strange. But no, I agree. I think Spanky Rattler played pretty well. I think the Saints are kind of who we thought they were. They'll win the odd game against teams they should probably beat, but probably aren't good enough to hang with the better teams. They'll put up points just because they've got speed on the outside. I think Dennis Allen, let's be honest, is probably done at the end of this year, regardless of
It's
who's
the
playing
Saints, though.
quarterback.
The Saints don't get rid of their coaches, no
No,
matter
I
how
know they
good
don't,
they are.
but maybe I don't know. Maybe they will this season. Who knows?
They should.
Baker seemed pretty in control again after an erratic week the other week. Tampa Bay, yeah. Mike Evans. Let's talk about Mike Evans.
Before you do that, can I talk about Raheem Shaheed? So remember I said last week that when my friend puts him in fantasy, he does really well.
Yeah.
When he leaves him out, he does really well, and when he plays him, he's rubbish. I got a message going, yes, fantasy points. I put him in this week. I was like, no, special teams don't count, mate. And he got 11 receiving yards and 2 rushing yards. He's like,
Special teams should count. If you're a returner,
it should,
you
but
should.
it doesn't.
It
I got
should.
caught out by this with Tyreek Hill when I had him in my first year in fantasy. He got a 101-yard punt return and scored a touchdown. I was jumping up and down thinking, yes, I'm going to win, and nope.
No.
Yeah, let's talk
Mike
about Mike
Evans.
Evans.
Mike Evans.
So, Tampa Bay scored 51 points. Without looking it up, how many yards and touchdowns do you think Mike Evans got?
110, 1 touchdown.
2 catches, 34 yards.
He's a distraction though, isn't he?
You do understand that Mike Evans and the Saints don't get on very well. Like, he's usually
Yes.
fighting Marshawn Lattimore on the sideline rather than
Yeah,
trying to win the
and
game.
he does that every season. But you almost watch these games now for Mike Evans creating issues with the Saints and having that punch up.
It's like Crabtree and Keep to Leave, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
forget the
yeah,
game.
yeah,
We just want
very
them
much
to
so.
just
Yeah, yeah.
fight.
But I just think it's interesting that this season Evans is not probably performing at the highest level. I know you were saying about Amari Cooper earlier, Dave. I think that does hold true for Evans this season. I think he has lost a step. Yes, he's still a great receiver, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he can burn cornerbacks anymore. And I think he probably needs to start thinking about how to become more of a possession receiver as much as he is the deep threat. So I don't think it'll happen this season, but I think over the next year or two, we're probably going to see Mike Evans using some different types of roles. And maybe, who knows, maybe Godwin becomes the main man in Tampa.
Yeah, so far this season, he's only got more than 50 yards 3 times. Not got more than 100 yards. Only 5 touchdowns. Sorry. So touchdown front is still been
bad.
okay,
Still
but
Yeah, no,
Decent
it's
front,
not
but
bad, but it's just
it's
not
not Mike Evans.
it's not what he's been.
Give him some time. Chris Godwin's definitely getting the lion's share of the targets and is repaying that faith as well from Baker.
And I like Godwin. I think he's a good receiver.
Bit streaky for me, but yeah.
On to the next game then. Another no surprise was the Cardinals at the Packers. It must be incredibly frustrating to be a Cardinals fan. You go toe-to-toe with the 49ers and win last week. Then you look a shadow of yourself the next week. 4 3-and-outs in a row to start the game. Your top 5 pick Marvin Harrison Jr. goes out with a concussion. And the Packers are 24-0 up before you get a score. The Packers were looking comfortable the whole game with 2 touchdowns for Romeo Doubs and 1 each for Jaden Reed and Christian Watson. The last 3 Cardinals possessions were fumbles, as the Packers defense wanted some headlines too. The final score was the Cardinals 13, Packers 34.
This is the Cards without an offense. Because defensively, and last week I praised their defense for keeping them in it and coming up with big stops, but it was a sort of an out of the norm situation, as it's normally the area that lets them down, and we saw it yet again. Jordan Love and co were able to exploit the defense massively. I think Cards are at bottom of the pack in terms of allowing most yards per game. So any offense that plays against them goes in rubbing their hands together, thinking they're going to have a field day. At least throughout the start of the season, they've been able to put up points offensively, particularly the connection between Murray and Harrison Jr. has been really useful to them. And I just think they, when he went out with that concussion, they've realised how little they have, and they really struggled to make things happen after that. And, at least before they were able to put up a good haul of points and keeping it that way. But if they're not able to put up points, then the defense just isn't able to keep them in games.
Yeah. I think in this game, I think Arizona were rubbish. I think they really didn't play well. I'll give you some stats. Time of possession, I'll do some rounding as well. Time of possession, Green Bay 37 minutes to Arizona's 23 minutes. It was utter domination. Penalties, 13 accepted penalties, treble figures over 100 yards. Had to punt it 4 times. Only had 16 first downs. Now, considering that Green Bay got nearly 30, it's just not good enough. When you've got the kind of roster that Arizona have got, they're better than this. And that's the thing. It's what Punk said a minute ago. We're just disappointed. You're better than this.
I'm not disappointed.
Well, you're not.
You have to quickly say that the Cardinals had an absolute murderer's row of a start to this schedule. I mean, Bills, Rams, Lions, Commanders, 49ers, Packers.
Yeah, but in hindsight, the Bills aren't all that. The Rams are injured.
Well, they've beaten division rivals. They're 2 wins have been against the division.
On paper, it's tough, but in reality, they've done. And this is the thing, they've done well.
It's tough.
They've done well, but they're better than this.
Yeah, it's one of those growing pain games, isn't it? Young teams that are starting to build. And I'm sure at some point the Commanders will find this. They'll just have a game that, for whatever reason, nothing works and someone gets in. It just happens. It happens with teams that are not quite there yet. They don't necessarily have the strength in depth. They don't necessarily have enough playmakers to see them through when one goes out. So, yeah, like I said, they are better than this. They are definitely better than this, but on the day, they just weren't.
Yep, we all had off days.
So we're going to move on to another no surprise game, and that was the Bengals at the Giants. The Monday night snooze fest saw the Bengals pick up their second win of the season against the anemic Giants. Joe Burrow saw an open field on the opening drive and just ran it all the way to the end zone. Shout out to free safety Jason Pinnock, who ran left when Joe Burrow ran right for the 47-yard touchdown score. Daniel Jones was killing drives for the Giants, throwing a pick to set the tone early. The only bright spark on offense for the Giants was Tyrone Tracy, who had over 100 yards and the lone touchdown. Bengals were poor on offense too to keep it close, but a Chase Brown touchdown late, thanks to you, Finn, and 2 missed field goals for Greg Joseph inside 50 yards signed this terrible game off. Final score was the Bengals 17, Giants 7.
I think that was the slowest 50-yard touchdown I've ever seen.
Like Peyton Manning.
It took him so long to get there that I really wondered whether the rest of the Giants defense had just assumed that the play was over and had gone to the sideline, because there was no one even near him. It was ridiculous. Giants are rubbish. Giants are terrible. And yet you look at their list of names that they've got, Dexter Lawrence. I know Kayvon Thibodeau was out for this game.
He's out for a while, I think.
Yeah, it's not working. Whatever they're trying is not working. So I think Giants need to kind of almost pull the plug on it this season.
Mm.
I watched the Mets Dodgers instead of this game, so don't ask me.
What was the score in that? It's probably nearly as
Oh no, 9-0 Dodgers. It's the championship game. It's championship series. It's not going well for New York, unfortunately.
Yeah,
It went as
unfortunately.
well for New York in that game as it did in this game. Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was a massacre.
Mm. But yeah, there we go. It's 17-7. Awful. Another no surprise game. Let's do the Falcons at the Panthers. Carolina can score some points now, averaging almost 23 points a game over the last 4 weeks with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Problem is, their defense is averaging almost 33 points in that same period. It ran to form in this divisional game. The Panthers were keeping it close through most of 3 quarters, but Dalton threw 2 picks as they chased some scores above their average. Falcons leave with the win. Final score: Atlanta 38, Carolina 20.
Nice for the Falcons. Not meant to kick a last gasp field goal.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Young
Yeah,
Wake who get their week off.
I'm not going to provide any in-depth analysis here or anything like that. I'm only going to say that
What's the
I
change?
didn't think we'd be here where we are now, in the fact that the Panthers are the team in this matchup that are likable. And the Falcons, I'm really struggling to like them. I don't know why. I'm
Always
looking at watching the
like the
Falcons.
Panthers.
I'm just a bit. I kind of hope to lose. I don't know why. There's
Because you're a
something about
Broncos
them.
fan,
Be
you
nice
don't
if they do this
understand what
week.
good football is. So
It's not. It's nothing to do with that. I watch teams play good football against us every week. What are you talking about? No, just there's something about this Falcons team. I'm just not bought into it. They've got really good. Some of my favorite players play on the Falcons. I'm just not bought into it yet. I don't know why. Told you
Nothing
it
else to
wasn't
say on that game.
in-depth.
It's you just don't like them. Like Hannah. Let's move on then to the Texans at the Patriots. Absolutely no surprises with this one, as the Texans moved pretty easily against the Patriots defense. New England starting Drake May was a bit of a head scratcher against a decent opponent, but they threw him in, and after a shaky start with a fumble and a couple of picks, they did begin to let him YOLO the ball, and he ended up with 3 touchdown passes as the Texans lost a bit of focus on defense. Still, the game was over before any heroics. 2 touchdowns for Joe Mixon and 1 for Tank Dell in their returns from injury. And the final score, Texans 41, Patriots 21.
I think Drake May did all right. I give him credit for this.
terribly.
I think it's hard. He's a rookie. The interceptions were bad, but it's his first game. I just think you just have to say, do you know what? He did his best. It wasn't terrible. Good luck to him. I'm not his biggest fan by any stretch, but I think he comes out of this doing all right.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we're going to give Spanky Rattler credit for what he did in his
Yeah.
game, I think we have to give Drake May credit for what he did as well. This was just not a surprise, was it? Really?
Not one bit.
The Texans showed why they're a good team, and they did what they needed to do and beat a bad team. So, yeah, there's not a huge amount really that I think you can kind of pick up and go, oh, the Texans were really good at this, or they were terrible at that. They, ran the ball really well, controlled the clock, limited what CJ Stroud had to do, passing wise. So, and, adjusted enough that they never allowed the Patriots back into it. It was always comfortable. So
This is a game where you could be really narcissistic and sit there and say, this is the reason why the Texans won. This is the reason, and make it sound like you really know what you're talking about. In all honesty, you can pick any reason why the Texans won and you'd be right, because they dominated every single part of the ball.
yeah,
It's as simple as that. There's no reason why, no singular one reason why they won. They're just a better football team right now, and that's it.
Just a good team beating a bad team.
And it came, well, exactly what you want to do. You go into an opponent who's bad, beat them easily, and
Yep.
don't have any injuries, and get out. And that's
Yep.
exactly
You
what they've
punch
done.
them in the face, coast, get out of there, done.
Exactly. Well done, Houston. The last no surprise game I've got here is the Browns at the Eagles. And man, I hate the Eagles this season. Any quarter decent team and they'll take a loss, I'm swearing to you. But they are being served dross even worse than they are. The Browns just can't move the ball. And their only touchdown came on a blocked punt, picked up and returned by an ex-Eagle, Rodney McLeod. The Eagles only won this because of their top-class receivers. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith were both back and caught deep passes for a score each. But the Eagles had a bye week to prepare for this home game. Looks like all Coach Sirianni did was get a buzz cut. The final score was the Browns 16, Eagles 20.
Eagles didn't
I
win this
know.
game.
Yeah, I know Eagles technically have this in the win column, but I don't
Yeah.
see it as a win.
No.
No.
Not in the slightest.
The most hollow of hollow victories. It just
Yeah.
something's wrong there. Something's really wrong.
Something big going on. I mean,
Private
they've got
pilot
AJ
head
Brown
coach.
back, but
It feels like more
it's
than that
still
because he has almost no say in the defensive side of the ball. That's Fangio, and I know I'm not Fangio's biggest fan, and we know why, but they just can't get going at all. Yeah, I
They've got
want to
no
shut up.
secondary. Let's face it. They've always been bad at cornerback, but they're historically bad. I think there's no coverage. And you've got CJ Gardner-Johnson making an ass of himself every week at safety. There's not. I want to bet against them, but they keep getting served weak opponents.
But I mean, if you look at who they've got Quinion Mitchell, who I think was first round, I'm sure he was first
He
round
was their
pick.
first round pick, yeah.
Yeah, it was.
And then they got Cooper DeJean, who's
Yeah,
playing sort of that
they're not
nickel
doing anything.
safety. But this is it. I mean, it's not as though
Bringing
they
in
don't
pieces,
have
but-
anything. You know, they've got talent out there. They're just playing crap. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, they're getting targeted too easily. Just a quick, my favorite stat for the Browns is they're now over 26 on third down conversions with Deshaun Watson under center.
Yeah, consecutive.
Yeah. Last 26 third downs,
Absolute rubbish.
you are going off the field.
I'd like to think if
Bloody
you
hell.
gave me in the NFL, like strap me
Might as
up,
well punt on third down at that point.
yeah,
Yeah.
strap me up, stick an helmet on me. I
Yeah.
reckon if you give me 26 attempts, I reckon I can convert one. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not going to be
possibly.
pretty. I might just sort
We'll
of
get it
panic and
done.
just gun it just without even looking. But someone's got to catch one of them, surely. Well, that's garbage.
Yeah. So there we go.
But it's
That
all right
was-
because Kevin Stefanski's come out and said that he's their number one starter. He didn't look at all convincing when he said it, but there you go.
It wasn't his voice.
No.
So those were the no surprises games. Just a few more to go. And I'm going to start with the Jags at the Bears. The hottest seat in Wembley this Sunday won't be next to me as the coolest guy there, but the one that Doug Pederson will be occupying as the Jags are in a must-win game now, thanks to being slapped about by the Chicago Bears. The battle of two number one draft pick quarterbacks, but this was a Caleb Williams highlight reel of a game. 2 touchdown passes to Keenan Allen, 2 for Cole Kmet, and a rushing score from DeAndre Swift blew the Jags out of the water. 2 touchdowns for Gabe Davis made the score less grating, but it won't save Doug if they fall to 1-6. The final score from Spurs Stadium was the Jags 16, Bears 35.
This was, like I said last week, exactly what you want the Bears to do.
Mm.
And they've done it again. They seem to have found the recipe that everyone knew was out there to not have to make Caleb do it all, and rely on the run game as well. And things will happen. And yes, albeit it's against a subpar Jags team, that recipe just works. You need to save your QB for big moments, and if he's having to throw every 5 seconds, and it's not going to work. So it's good to see that they're sticking with it, and they're going into this bye week on a high, and hopefully they can iron down a bit more and actually keep this recipe going.
I only watched I didn't watch the game live. I've only watched the 10-minute highlights on YouTube. So I've got more of a question than an answer.
Sure.
This game looked like an absolute piece of piss for Chicago. Was it as one-sided as it looked in?
Not to start with. It took Chicago a little bit of time to get going. The Jags seemed to have the measure of them defensively right up until I'd say about halfway through the second quarter. And then Chicago's kind of figured it out, made some adjustments, started managing to move the ball. It probably isn't a scoreline that flatters Chicago. They probably were that much better than the Jags. But to me, it just felt like a better coaching job. It felt like the Bears kept adjusting and the Jags just kept playing base defense and not knowing what to do. Offensively, I suppose there is one spark of light for the Jags in that, Mac Jones had 100% completion rate. So,
Epic.
it's not all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
He did complete his one pass for 6 yards. So
There you go.
it's
QB controversy now.
rays of light for those going to Wembley to watch them against the Patriots this week.
On the highlights, it just looked as though Trevor Lawrence was being rushed and being hurried on
He was.
every single play.
He was. Trevor Lawrence had no time at all. They couldn't get the running game going. But The Jags just look like how the Jags have looked all season long. Like they're inept. They don't really understand what their game plan is, what they're trying to do. Their first drive was great. They kind of marched down the field a bit, kicked a field goal. You thought, okay, yeah, no, that looks decent. But then, like I
Like the
said, as soon as
Jags.
the Bears started making adjustments, the Jags just didn't. They didn't do anything differently.
Yeah, I've got a sinking feeling about them wanting Doug Peterson to go, and so the players are just going to give up. They feel like they've
Sooner or
given
later,
up.
though, I mean,
Mm.
you have to acknowledge that it's not always the head coach. I mean, that's three head coaches that are going to have gone through now in 18 months, 2 years. I
Yeah,
mean, come on. It has sooner or later that I think the GM now is officially Shai Card's son in it, who's got no formal qualification. He's less qualified than Jerry Jones, which says something. So sooner or later, if you're the owner, you just have to say, look, I'm going to keep the head coach in there because he's got a proven track record, and kick your son out and go and get someone else
I
in.
mean, officially it's Trent Baalke, so I'd rather have Shad Khan's son than Trent Baalke being the GM.
Hey man, either or makes no difference.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's tweeted with the internet.
Tony
Not
Khan should bring in some of his AEW wrestlers to play for them. That might work.
Is he into wrestling, is he?
They own AEW.
He owns AEW.
I'm not going to pretend to know what AEW is,
Yeah,
but it
no,
sounds
there we
very
go.
That's why I
exciting.
didn't. That's why I didn't go any further with it.
God. All right, we're going to move on. Move on. So we're going to do the Colts at the Titans. Will Levis continues to lose every game he finishes this season, despite throwing one touchdown in the first half to Nick Westbrook-Akine and leading a 14-play drive for a Tony Pollard touchdown at the start of the second half. He was his usual awful self, throwing a pick while targeting Calvin Ridley. Shout out to Calvin Ridley, by the way. 8 targets, 0 catches. The Colts got away with one here, but really everyone who watched this didn't win. Final score was the Colts 20, Titans 17.
Will Levis, it might surprise you to know, he's leading the league. So he's not actually been terrible. He's leading the league in interceptions.
Yes. Congratulations
That's
to
the,
Will
that's
Levis.
the only thing I
He's
can
not
got away
played
with
every
the
bloody
punchline.
game.
How
He's
many
not
is
even
he
played
up?
every game.
How many is he up to?
7.
7.
Yeah, if we
Impressive.
extrapolate that out
And what
to where
week are
he's
we
going
in
to
now?
be, 5. He's only played 5 games because they've
Week
already had their
6, yeah.
bye.
Yeah, they've had a bye already.
Yeah, they've had a bye already, and he
And
still
Mason
leads the
Rudolph played
league.
most of the game, didn't he?
His average is I saw some stat I might butcher. There was a running back who's got an average run per attempt higher than his pass per attempt or pass per completion. His
Yeah, he's
average,
out of
his,
this
his
league.
pass per completion is 5.5 yards, I think, or something like that. It's bad,
What a
man.
man to have at QB.
He's incredible. But his mayonnaise adverts are legit. Have you seen them? It's
Yes.
incredible. That's the
You
best thing I
can't
can
miss
say
him.
about him. Yeah.
I said when we were picking this one last week that if Flacco was playing, then I would probably side with the Colts.
Yeah.
And we weren't sure at the time. I went with the Titans. But yeah, Flacco did Flacco things. He got a couple of touchdowns. He didn't put them in any ridiculous situations.
You win a game completing 22 of 38.
You know, it's just one of them, isn't it? You know, when you hit 22 of 38 and the opposition is 16 of 27, but it's only for 95 yards, it's like, come on, man. What are you doing? Seriously, can we put a team together here? Yeah, I think Tennessee are again exactly who we thought they were. To be honest, I'm not quite sure what's happened to Calvin Ridley. Like you said, 8 targets, no catches. That's a bit off the chain, but
Depends on where the targets were.
no, true. This
One
is
of them
Some were catchable, right?
one
Some
was
were
32
catchable.
One was
yards
behind
away.
him, yeah.
There we go.
See-
So AFC
see,
South
normally-
divisional game sorted.
Normal NFL fans go, when is a catch not a catch? They say is when a target not a target because
Yeah.
I mean, they classed it as a attempt to him. So there we go. Last game then. It's the Monday night game, and oh look, honey, the Jets lost a game to the Bills, but this one was at least close. The first game without Robert Saleh in charge, air quotes, and the Jets started positively. 10 points in the opening quarter in a somewhat fortuitous Hail Mary that worked out to end the half. But as the game wore on, the Bills slowed the Jets' offense enough, and it became a kicking game. Not good when the wind was up at MetLife. Both kickers were missing. Tyler Bass missed a field goal and an extra point for Buffalo. Greg Zerler missed 2 field goals for New York. It came down to another Aaron Rodgers YOLO ball down the field. This time, though, it was picked off by Taron Johnson, and the Bills secure the win. Final score was the Bills 23, Jets 20.
Jets should have won this. Greg the Leg doinked twice in this, but just generally the Jets looked better. The offense looked more cohesive. Yeah, there were still a few issues with drop balls and balls going awry and receivers not running the right routes, but I think I think they did get the manager bounce that we thought they would. It just we didn't factor in the kicking might go to pot. I don't know. These feel like two very even teams, to be honest. I don't think the Bills are all that amazing, and it's quite obvious why they've both gone out and got new receivers in before the trade deadline. But yeah, I think it's a weird one because it feels like watching the game, it felt like the Jets should win it. But equally, you just don't know then if they are in front, does Josh Allen do his hero ball thing and bring the Bills back anyway? Yeah, it is what it is. I think they'll both be fine going forwards, but be interesting to see how quickly they get their new receivers up to speed and contributing.
Well, there's a chance
So-
they could destabilize the offense with Devontae Adams in there.
Well, I don't know.
Maybe.
I think Mike Williams
It's
is
fair.
probably out of the job now, but
I couldn't sleep this night, so I went down and started watching the game, and I got so pissed off and annoyed with the number of flags, I went to bed. There were 22
ridiculous.
flags accepted penalties in this game. It's not because it just ruins any momentum of the game. Flags drive me mad. And it wasn't even the rest being pernickety. There were 22 flags in this game for a combined 204 yards.
yeah,
It
it was
was-
almost as bad as that Cowboys
it was-
Giants game a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, it drove me up the wall. And I'm like, it kills any momentum because it then puts the team. Say if you're second and 10, you're then second and 20. And they're like, well, what are we playing for? Because they're not going to take a risk. They just throw the ball behind the line, accept the third down and punt it. It's a waste of time. And
Yeah.
honestly, it just got on my tits. So I just went to bed.
I mean, it does come to something when you've got quarterbacks coming out and saying that flags that are thrown for roughing the passer weren't roughing the passer.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but this
I don't think
this
I've ever heard
season-
that before. That the opposing quarterback has said, "No, that was fine. There was nothing wrong with that."
the amount of illegal shifts we've seen this season and the amount of false starts, it's insane. It's absolutely insane.
Game is another one at the moment.
Yep.
I think, yeah, like Punk said, the Jets offense looked more of a unit. How much of that is down to sort of the head coach going bounce and change of play caller. It seems Mr. Rogers is had his way on that side and seems to be happy for now. And how long that lasts will probably dictate how well the offense plays as a unit. So whatever they do, the Jets need to make sure they keep him as happy as they can, because otherwise they're going back to where they have been of recent weeks.
So yeah, Devontae Adams now alongside Alan Lazard, and didn't they bring in Mercedes Lewis as well at the start of the season?
Yeah, they've got Mercedes Lewis as well.
Do you know the
Mercedes
Bills?
Lewis
The
don't
Bills
catch.
just released Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They could be on for a full Packers reunion there at this rate.
And I believe Equiminius St. Brown is still also a free agent.
Mm.
There you go.
Snap them up. Snap them up.
There you go.
One final thing I want to say on this game, it was about my guy Ray Davis. He got more reps with James Cook out injured. 20 carries for 97 yards. He averaged 4.9 yards a carry. He had 3 catches, 55 yards, which was the Bills' top receiver too. 152 total yards and would have had a touchdown, but Josh Allen pulled rank on the goal line, so he had a great game.
Whenever you say Ray Davis, this is all I think about.
Well,
There's a Ray
glad you're
Charles
on a
impression.
podcast. You're doing a Ray Charles impression, yeah, with some sunglasses on. Well done, Dave.
Made you lot laugh.
Yes, it did. Those were all the games from week 6. So, Punk, it's your time to shine. Have you got some power plays for us? Tell me you do. Tell me
I've
you do.
always got power plays. There's a
Yeah.
play or two in the NFL
Get 'em
that's
in.
worth talking about. So, starting off interestingly with a week where we've had a 50 burger and a couple of 40 burgers. There were no hat trick heroes, which was quite interesting. Means teams are throwing the ball and spreading it about a bit. Honorary mentions. Here we go. Rashid Shaheed's 53-yard punt return for a touchdown. Cortland Sutton's one-handed diving touchdown grab for the Broncos,
Not a
which was
touchdown.
a catch.
Definitely
Not
a
a
catch.
touchdown.
And Aaron Rodgers' Hail Mary TD for the Jets, which, although you're saying it's luck, Jim, he's clearly turned it into an art form because that's about his fifth. So, it's more Hail Marys than I ever remember any quarterback throwing. So I'm giving him credit for it. Right, on we go. First up, you're playing away at a conference rival and have conceded a field goal on the opening drive, so you need to respond. On 3rd and 5 from your own 35-yard line, you decide the time is right to test the cornerbacks on a deep ball. Taking the snap in shotgun, the quarterback spots a receiver one-on-one down the right sideline, but the cornerback has what looks like perfect coverage. Launching the ball 35 yards in the air, it looks as though the pass is going to fall incomplete as it's a little bit short, but the cornerback never looks back. Tim Patrick spots the ball coming and immediately hits the brakes, makes the cornerback fly right past him before readjusting his feet and diving back towards the ball, scooping it about 2 inches above the turf and getting the Lions' offense purring early against Dallas. This was the play that set them off. Up to this point, the Lions had just been a fairly standard early game offense. And then this happened and the floodgates opened. So a little bit of Tim Patrick love because if he hadn't looked for the ball when he did, he would never have seen it was thrown short and come back for it.
Yeah, good receiver, Tim Patrick. One of my favorite plays of Tim Patrick's career was where he was running sort of a corner route into the end zone and he saw the ball was going to basically come to the other guy who was near him. So he starts putting his hands up to fake the cornerback, to drag the cornerback out of the way. I was like, oh, that's such a high IQ move. So yeah, he's
Clever
good. He's a
play. Clever play.
good receiver.
Right, on to the next one. At the end of what's been a scrappy first half, bit of an understatement there, the opposition are trying a long 57-yard field goal to extend their lead to 2 scores. Knowing your offense is struggling to score points, you decide to take matters into your own hands. As the ball is snapped, you take your 6'4", 272-pound defensive player of the year frame, leap over the center, land right in front of the kick, and throw a big right paw to the sky. The ball cannons away and is rolling towards the sideline, where Rodney McLeod, in his revenge game, scoops the ball and under escort returns it to the house untouched to tie the game instead of giving the Cleveland Clowns hope going into the second half. So this is the combination play, shall we say. It's mainly for the Myles Garrett move, managing to leap over the center and block the field goal without committing a penalty, which I thought must have happened at some point. But yeah, no, just loved this play. Thought it was really good. And the Cleveland Clowns probably need a little bit of love on defense because it's not their fault that the offense is absolute dog shit. Onwards. Right. You're down 23-3 at home, and you really need a spark to start climbing back into the game. With only 10 minutes left in the third quarter, taking a kickoff, Laviska Shenault does exactly that. Catching the ball at the 3-yard line, he takes off down the right-hand side of the field. As he crosses the 20, he starts to move towards the middle and meets his first opponent at the 25. Blasting past him with a burst of speed, he gets through without being touched. At the 30, he meets a gaggle of blockers and tacklers, so sidesteps to his left to avoid the traffic, breaking another tackle in the process. He passes the 35 and is converged on by 2 more foes, breaking both those tackles before hitting daylight and winning the foot race to the corner of the end zone to start the Seahawks comeback. The Seahawks had nothing up to this point, and I thought actually this was a play that I enjoyed very much because it went corner to corner almost. So it was diagonal across the field rather than it being a straight return where you've just broken 2 tackles and gone. So well worth looking up. And yeah, it did spark the Seahawks back into life. They came back quite well on the 49ers, just couldn't get there in the end.
And it was an
We
atonement
did
as
like
well
that
for
one.
the earlier fumble.
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
true as well. Yeah.
But this is power plays. Fumbles are not power plays. Fumble
Talk
returns
about
are-
the atonement. Yes.
Right. Okay. Next one. You're leading 28-20 with 10:47 left in the game and have the ball deep in your own half. Conventional wisdom says at the very least run some clock. So that's what the Falcons aim to do. On 1st and 10 at their own 16, Cousins hands the ball to the human wrecking machine that is Tyler Algier, who runs a stretch play to the right. So far, so normal. He gains 4 yards without trying, but then meets traffic. So he lowers his head to ward off the first tackler, and as the second grabs his ankle, breaks free of that, lifting his left leg into a high knee movement. He's swallowed up by 2 more Panthers, with another 3 coming to help, but does this deter him? Of course not. He breaks the tackles of the 2 defenders, bounces off another hit, and barrels forward, passing the first down marker. 2 more latch on, 2 more tacklers latch on, and he fights and carries them all the way up to the 35-yard line, providing some much needed breathing room for the Falcons. It's just one of those head down, be a complete nutter, Kenneth Walker, Damian Pierce type power runs that I just love. Anytime someone's breaking tackles and making defensive players, linebackers especially, bounce around, they've always got a chance of being in the power plays. Right. And finally, Najee Harris had a run in the second quarter on 1st and 10 that Jim liked because he broke some tackles too. But
Yeah.
it wasn't as good as Tyler Algier, so it doesn't make the cut. So
Wait a
this
minute.
is all I get said about it.
What about Najee's touchdown run?
What about it?
Oh, come on.
That was brilliant.
He died from the
Jim's
5-yard
reaction
line.
as soon as he heard the name was
Yeah.
priceless.
I can't believe
And he is
you
now-
actually gave some credit to a
He
great
is
run.
now sobbing.
That's
It's fine. I
ultimate
got the
troll
win.
in there. Can I give a couple of honourable mentions? So the hat-trick hero, we do have one.
Do we? Have I
We
missed one?
do. Sort of. So Will Anderson, 3 sacks and was a menace all game. But it's just an honourable mention because he's looking better and better and better. He's really legit. The other one, it's not a hat-trick hero, but I wanted to give a shout out. I meant to do it during the Broncos game and I didn't. Brandon Jones is a safety that we brought in to replace Justin Simmons, and this week led the league with 12 tackles. Every tackle was assured. He was in the right place at the right time, and I just wanted to say really, really well done to him. 12 tackles in a game is very, very good. 11 of them were solo tackles as well, which is incredible. So yeah, well done to him.
More Broncos credit than we ever want to be giving out on this podcast.
It was
Thank you,
a
Dave.
great performance.
Mm.
That's what it was.
And you noticed it. So we certainly didn't. So that's it.
I'm here to educate you, Jim.
Thank you.
know this.
Well,
One of the people.
good luck. That was the Week 6 review done. We'll be back very shortly with the Week 7 preview podcast. In the meantime, make sure you check us out on social media and at patreon.com/finaldown, where you can get all of our stuff there and also get notifications for our drops. Boys, thank you very much for doing the pod. It's great to have you on, and I'll be seeing you very soon, hopefully.
Enjoy Wembley. I'm sure it'll be
Thank
a smashing
Snooze
game
fest.
this week.
It's what you make it. It's what you make
Take a
it.
pillow.
Who are you supporting, or are you going there as a neutral?
My heart wants the Jags to win, obviously, but
Obviously.
I'm thinking, well, because they're kind of the second team, aren't they? You know, I've
He's
seen
Jags
them a
fan
lot of
for him,
times,
isn't
and you always like the plucky underdog. But I think that the Patriots,
Which is
despite
the
being-
Patriots.
They've both
Patriots,
got a
definitely.
1-5 record, right? And I just think that the Patriots looked a bit more full of life in the last game than the Jags did. I think that the Jags are waiting to kill off Doug Pedersen. So
You'll have to find a way to make it enjoyable. Maybe every punt you got to down your pint or something like that.
I've got a Jags fan on one side, a Patriots fan on the other, so I'm going to be enjoying myself. You know, I'll be neutral. I'll be Switzerland in this game.
Just take a pillow. That's all I can say.
And a box of Kleenex. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, easy.
Whoa.
Not for me.
Don't know what you want to
Me.
get up to.
Not for me.
For one of those either side of you.
Exactly, yeah.
You're the cleanup job, are you? I like it.
Until next week, I've been Jim. That's been Finn. That's been Never Dave. That's been Pat Ritter. Thank you very much for listening.